Want to win money on sports? With Underdog, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash just by picking higher or lower on your favorite player stats. Millions of fans have won billions of dollars on Underdog. Will you be next? Download the Underdog app and sign up to get a free pick with your first cash entry up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Hashtag no music, no intro. Another episode of the Saints Block Party podcast. And this time, it's not just Ryan and myself. We are joined by the esteemed, the acclaimed Jourdan Rodrigue of the Athletic / New York Times. She covers the Los Angeles Rams as their beat reporter, was the former beat reporter for the Carolina Panthers. You can also find her on the Heed the Call podcast and our dude himself, Greg Rosenthal, on the NFL Daily podcast. Jourdan, it is a pleasure. Thank you for joining SBP and talking football with us.
I'm happy to be here, guys. Also, I'm of the understanding that this isn't just nerd football talk and previewing this weekend's matchup, Rams Saints, but also this is like a roast Greg Rosenthal session, right?
Oh my God!
Am I clear? Like on the assignment?
Greg, can you do the Greg impression? Like it's the impersonation of Greg.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
His EPA isn't really impressing me the way,
Wait, I got one. And the Patriots, the 2019 New England Patriots. At least I got the topic.
It was good. Greg, we roast Greg. Greg's such an amazing dude.
I love that guy.
I do too. And that's kind of one of the funny things of social media, of how like Greg and I connected. Like we were just like, we connected. We both loved football. And they're like, hey, let's have like a dad's day with our kids. And we went and had like a dad's day in Santa Monica. And that was years ago. And now it's developed into an awesome friendship. But before we talk about football, something I wanted to kind of put at the beginning of the podcast, and before we go into like Saints Rams and all the football sicko stuff, is we'll have a little Oprah moment, if that's okay. Like just a tiny little Oprah moment.
Do I have a gift under my seat?
No, for sure not. No. We're too broke for that. But something I did want to say is that today is the actual 3-year anniversary of my mom passing.
Wow.
I remember it like it was yesterday. Saints had just played the Bills on Thanksgiving, and I was in Texas, and I spent the entire week with her, and then the next morning she passed. But like one of the big things that a life lesson that I learned from her as a person is things don't define a person, and people can change, right? And I think the reason I'm bringing that up in this instance is, for the longest, and Greg can attest to this, like Greg vouched to for me to unblock Jourdan, because you were blocked for the longest time, and I think you're a huge testament of in my mind, Greg talked to me, I'm like, okay, if Greg messes with Jourdan, if Patrick messes with Jourdan, I know she's good people, right? And the things that may have happened in your past doesn't define you as a person. And I think I learned that as a life lesson for, my mom taught me that. And so all that combined, and it's kind of ironic that we're recording this podcast on today. I think it's it means something for you to be on the podcast on today's episode.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. First of all, that's really powerful. And, we carry the people we lose with us forever, don't we? And they emerge sometimes in the most surprising of ways. And it knocks you on your butt for a second when all of a sudden, you're reminded of, you think you hear their laugh, or you remember how they smell, or just little lessons that they taught you along the way. And for me, well, first of all, I'm so glad to be on here with you guys today. And like I mentioned when we were off recording, I've kept up with the show, and I appreciate the community and the welcomeness and just the like, come as you are and just come and be a part of some cool football conversation and life, and like having each other and supporting each other. And if you're a good person and you're kind to others and you're open to the world and to just like being there for other humans, like that's something that you guys just radiate off this show. And that's something that stuck out to me, and something that, I try to be. I don't have a perfect past. You guys know that. But every day I try to be a better version of the day previous, and to be fully open to empathy and understanding, and treating people with kindness and respect. And I've been treated with so much kindness in my life and so much respect. And I've been in so many locker rooms where I've learned extraordinary lessons and impactful lessons, and just things that changed my life forever. And, years and years and years and years can pass from mistakes that you make, but you never stop learning from them. Right. And you never stop growing and developing as a human. And I'm so fortunate that I get to like be in the world and meet people and like carry pieces of other people with me everywhere I go. And that's what I try to do, not just as a journalist, as a storyteller, as somebody who does continue to just like lay myself open to whatever I can receive from others, but also to carry little pieces with me, just like we just talked about, carry little pieces of everything and everyone, and just try to, be a complete and full and open and loving and kind human to everybody I meet, and to bring them with me on this journey. And that's how I try to do my job, is to try to bring people into football in ways that maybe they don't get to see, because it is extraordinarily impactful, and you have every part of life and humanity and everything, pain and suffering, mistakes, triumphs, failures, refailures again, lessons, learning. You have all of that in football, right? That's what I love so much about it, is that we can carry that with us, and we can be a part of that sport and be intertwined with that sport in a really powerful way. So all that to say is I'm really excited to be on with you guys. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your grace. And I just think that that's a really powerful thing for you to share with me. And I do not hold that or take that lightly.
Amen.
Great. Okay, so that was our Oprah moment to open the podcast.
Oprah moment, yeah.
Are we ready to talk just disgusting football conversation, Saints Rams?
I will be the biggest dork. Like, I'm warning you.
Oh, we know.
I know you know.
We know.
I'm so ready.
we are prepared. I would say like Sunday's a big game for both teams, right? For the Saints and the Rams. I think my impression of the Rams, and obviously I do live in LA adjacent, what have you, is I feel like the Rams are a good bad team, meaning that they that they beat bad teams, but if the competition is a little higher, they struggle or has underachieved and not beat good teams this season. And right now, it seems like the Saints they were a awful team, one of the worst teams in the league. They have now the Dan Rizzi interim head coach bump, and some of that is a bump, and some of that is he just is actually coaching the team, which was not happening in the past. I go back to the game that I was at with 30 plus of us of the community, Thursday Night Football, December of the the words I would use to describe what I saw. I won't use with in your presence, but it was a coaching mismatch at its absolute highest. The things that worry me about this game is Matthew Stafford, still a good quarterback. Puka Nacua, still amazing. He basically had Alontae Taylor benched last season in that game. And I don't know how the Saints, who now have just a sweat equity defense, like their defense okay, but it's not like great. I don't know what they can do to stop that and to stop Williams, who is a good running back, and the Rams run the ball well. And the Saints have not stopped running backs all season.
Period.
Yeah, and you know what, though? I think it's interesting because the Rams can be a good, great team. It's just that they're a good, okay to medium to bad team on offense, especially. And then when they face a running back who's like, larger than 185 pounds, because they get in their own way so much, right? And this has been reiterated since week 1. And there was injuries at the start of the year, right? Missing Cooper Kupp, missing Puka Nacua. But even when those guys got back on the field together, and then they had all but one of their linemen back, their starting linemen back, because they'd also dealt with missing their left guard and then missing their right tackle at various points. Their left tackle was suspended for a couple of games. And even when it was all together, it still didn't click, even though a lot of those guys had indeed gotten time together in training camp, in OTAs to try to figure this out. And a lot of it, and they just kept coming back to the same word, execution, execution, execution. They didn't think it was coaching. I know, right? It's the most classic, cliche word. But they didn't think it was coaching. They didn't think it was play calling. They didn't think that it was anything wrong structurally. It's just that they thought that they felt like they were messing up on certain details. And I had to ask, this week, because again, it came up again. And, you hear the same thing over and over and over again when a team loses a game. And
we know.
Yeah,
seven
right. I'm
straight.
like, not to like take you to a dark place or anything, but yes.
We're good.
I almost wondered, you know how like the cliche and the football cliche is like, oh, turnovers come in bunches. Well, I tend to think that mental mistakes do too. And you get stuck into a pattern, into a rhythm, and into a rut so easily, especially if you are an aging offense at certain premier positions. And if there's a chasm between the experienced players and the young players, and you haven't quite met in the middle yet. And so that's what I think is happening to the Rams right now. So I don't know what version of the Rams you guys are going to see in New Orleans. I have no idea, because if they don't get in their way, they can go out and beat the Brian Flores Minnesota Vikings, right? By 10 points. If they do get in their way, they can get, their butts absolutely stomped by the Arizona Cardinals and the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 good teams, but they could hang with good teams if they're not in their own way. It's missed blocks, missed calls, pressure that doesn't get picked up. Kyron Williams fumbles for a 4th time against Philadelphia on that opening drive. Those types of little things for their offense. Cooper Kupp maybe is a step slower than he used to be. Like those types of things that it just kind of compound. And that's sort of my running theory is I want someone to blame. I'm a journalist. Like I want to find the story to write who is at fault. Like I want to do this. And that's actually, it's a collection of mental errors that all pop up at different times. And if those Rams show up, then this might be a weird chaos game.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, after the Rams season last year, I kind of looked at them as this team that's reset, kind of on their way to trending back up. They had a solid season last year. They weren't perfect, but you could see the talent, the young talent coming. Then they had a good draft, drafted a lot of good players, looked good in the preseason. So I'm thinking like, okay, this is a team that, is going to be trending up. Got hit with a ton of injuries early in the season. And it surprised me that they hadn't turned it around yet. I really would have thought that, by this time they'll be hitting that mark, and maybe that could still happen. So do you attribute that to just that youth and age, like you say, where you got some older veterans that's kind of on the end of their career, and you got these young guys on the D-line and all over that's trying to find that consistency in playing in the NFL?
Yeah, they're in between identities in a couple of different spots on this roster. And you said it perfectly, where like they have one foot in the previous era of their team build, right? And that's Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. And then they have another foot in the new build, which is 2 draft classes in a row full of starters, including surprising.
Must be nice.
Right? So that prompts it. How are things going in New Orleans? No, but it is. But that's where things can get incongruous sometimes, right? Where like you have a learned and lived experience as a set of veterans. What it takes, what your formula is to put things together efficiently. What a work week looks like. What a season at week 13 feels like at this point versus some of these young guys who are first and second year players who either it's their first time going through that or their second time going through that. And you also have coaches that are trying to meet these two eras in the middle. And it's interesting, for the last couple of seasons, you've heard the whispers surrounding this Rams team, like, is this the year that they blow it all up? Is this the year that but they've sort of done like partial measures toward that. They overhauled their defense heading into 2023. And that defense was the youngest and cheapest in the league. Raheem Morris did a superhuman job coaching up that young defense. And Aaron Donald was just like, to me, I've seen Aaron Donald do some incredible things. That was the best version of himself because he brought all these young guys up with him at the same time as being like one of the best players the world's ever seen. And then, but on the other side of the ball, they sort of stayed where they were at. Now then on the offensive side, you see they're playing a rookie center versus the $51 million guard center, Jonah Jackson, that they brought in. They are trying to bring up some of this line while still a couple of older guys, Rob Havenstein, right tackle, who they'll get back this week, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. And those are great players, don't get me wrong. But trying to marry the generations together, to me, is where this team has felt a bit discombobulated. And it's hard because that's not necessarily a tangible thing, right? But you see how discombobulated it can get when they're at their worst, where it just doesn't feel like there's an identity there. You see what they're trying to do. You see what the theories are. And yet it just doesn't quite get there. It's kind of like when a car turns over and over and over and over again. It's like, this will be the time it starts. I know it. And it just never quite does. And so that's kind of where what the Rams feel like to me, inclusive to now their defense, where they have a lot of young rising stars on their defensive line. But the second and third levels are still an issue, where they've tried to marry, again, really veteran players, cheaper, and Darius Williams, who was not necessarily a cheap free agent acquisition, but cheaper free agent veterans with like a very young front, thinking, okay, that'll help these young guys grow up. Well, the young guys grew up, just like last year, the young guys grew up way faster than they expected them to. And now it's like, okay, now we're trying to balance and blend eras of football again together and eras of experience together. And it just, sometimes when it works, it really, really, really works, maybe for like 3 drives on offense and certainly some of these games on defense that we've seen in totality. But when it doesn't work, you really just feel, like I said, that stickiness, like that car turning over.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating to me because I want to preface this by saying, for 2 completely different reasons, I feel like where the Saints are and where the Rams are, at least at the quarterback position, they're reaching the same nexus point to some degree. And what I mean by that, and I don't want people to be like, oh, Adam's out here comparing Derek Carr to Matthew Stafford.
I think anybody who follows you knows that you are not doing that.
That is very true.
Thank you.
Like one of our earlier podcast episodes, even before like our brand and our name change, like there was such a contingent of people. This is when Matthew Stafford was still with the Lions. Like people on Twitter were just like, oh, I don't want to give a 1st-round pick for Matthew Stafford. Let's just roll with Jameis Winston. It literally caused us to do a podcast episode of like the just lunacy of it. But I digress. But it just, with the Saints, is different because I believe it was Lindsay Rhodes today on Blue Sky and on Twitter. She like posted or tweeted, skeeted, what have you, like Derek Carr's like stats. Shut up, Brian. Derek Carr's stats, right? And if you have just watched Derek Carr, especially for us as Saints fans, for us, like when the season's like maybe done and there's no chances or playoffs and there's no like pressure, like that's when Derek Carr shows up. It's like, oh, I'm
Derek Carr season, baby.
Ready to go. Like the cake comes on, right? And we heard this all of last season. Oh, just remember this 5-game stretch Derek Carr had. Like it was just amazing. Like, it was against like, but then people like don't put into context. Like it was against like the Giants. The good team that he beat in that stretch was, I guess, the Colts were semi-decent good last year, and the Bucks in the last week of the season, and they went on to obviously win the NFC South in the playoffs. But like everyone was like leaving out the Rams game and like leaving out how he looked in the Rams game. It feels like that's already kind of started a little bit this season since he's come back from injury. And then with the Rams, Matthew Stafford, Hall of Fame quarterback, question mark? That's a completely different conversation. But a former elite quarterback in the league, but he is aging. He's played well at spurts this season, still makes ridiculous, amazing throws that not only, but very few people in the league can make. But it seems like both teams are heading into this place where they need to start looking at what the future of the position looks like. I put up Tankathon just because I was curious in terms of like where the Rams are, and I believe like they're like 16th in the draft as of right now, and the Saints are like 9th. I don't know if this is the draft class to do it, but it just feels like at some point as a team, Rams, Saints, or whoever you are, you have to go out and get the next guy. The Saints are doing this thing, and we've talked about this a lot in our Discord, where we would think like it makes more sense to do the Tennessee Titans approach. Their head coach came out and said, we are evaluating Will Levis this season. Because you have to know if you have that guy. For us, start Hainer, start Rattler, see what you have, because at least you know going into the offseason, okay, we feel comfortable enough that we can do a season with Hainer, Rattler, whatever, or we need to move on and draft a guy, what have you. It just feels like they're both meeting the same kind of nexus point of where they are for their starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, I love the parallels there too, because, and certainly they're not alone. And this is, like you mentioned, this is not, to me, we still have, I think we're gonna get to rookie quarterback or incoming rookie quarterback season, and like it's gonna be like, this guy was good the whole time and we saw it and you didn't. And it's like, no, in November, nobody was saying this, but okay, like go off kind of a thing. But
happens
like
every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
And so it's like, you know, there will be someone, it will probably be an anomaly to have yet another class like we've seen a few years back where immediately you knew that like none of these guys are going to work out. And then now you see like the Sam Darnolds kind of find their way. You see some of the guys find their way. But like, I think people will be not more cautious when selecting quarterbacks, because it's always go get the quarterback. If you think there's even a shot that he works out, like go get the quarterback. But what is interesting and where the parallel stops is that there is uncertainty now with New Orleans and what the culture will look like with a new head coach coming in, and what that head coach will want to do versus I am fairly certain now, nobody hold me to this, please, but I'm fairly certain like Sean McVay would rather like walk into the Pacific Ocean than bring a rookie up from the ground up. I think he likes having a quarterback who's already seen a lot of, and it might be like an old rookie, right? So let me hedge a little bit. Like, I think he'd rather have like an old rookie come in if the time comes and when the time comes to eventually move on from Matthew Stafford, an older rookie who's seen a lot of football, or somebody who is like, you know, you hear whispers before Dak signed his contract. It was like level of experience, somebody who is mature, who plays the position, you know, at a high level. You saw this when he went out and traded for Matthew Stafford. You know, that this is the type of like experience level, because he doesn't want to reverse course and restart in offense. It's already set. That's already in. Right. There's 8 years of this language, this alphabet that they've spent evolving over that time. And it's like, okay, jump in and start at the letter J, not at the letter B, you know, like that's what they want organizationally. And they will have already a core of young players who have developed enough to the point where you can plug a more experienced player, not an old player, but like a more experienced player maybe in and just go. Now, New Orleans, I am so curious about. I think that New Orleans will be such a fascinating study this offseason, because first, got to get the head coach, right? Got to figure out who that's going to be. And then what does that head coach want to do, what, like you said, the Titans are doing, and run out a year of evolution and get a full draft evaluation season underneath himself, and then also whoever his selected and preferred scouts, senior scouts, pro personnel people are in that building, who it will develop those relationships with, who he'll be able to trust for those evaluations, and get a full year with those people before making that massive franchise-altering decision. And it is really the choice. Getting it right can fast forward your entire process. Getting it wrong can set you back, and getting set back even a year in this league, you guys know, it sets you back 5 years in real, like, it's like the reverse dog years or whatever. It's like getting it wrong, getting the quarterback wrong, even for 1 year, sets you back so much further behind everybody else because of how fast this league changes.
It's amazing.
I'll let Ryan go. I just wanted to add this point where you're talking about Sean McVay and what he wants. When you were talking about that, you pretty much identically described Sean Payton and Bo Nix.
Like, old rookie. Yeah.
Like literally though. Like a rookie who played a lot of football in college, was a very heady, smart quarterback, and yes, his rookie season started off rocky, but Sean is what Bo Nix is doing right now in Denver is impressive, especially how he looked even back to the Thursday night football game that he had against the Saints, because he looked like he was like almost like not playable. So I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of just what they're wanting from the quarterback position. But I'll let Ryan kind of take the next piece. I just wanted to add that.
And forgive me, Ryan, I'm so sorry, but the Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson, who's bringing over evolved elements of Sean McVay's playbook, well, they wanted Kirk Cousins, who has seen a lot of football. They also wanted an old rookie who's seen a lot of football. You know, it's like that's I think going to start to be a not so subtle characteristic of this. However, this tree is sort of pollinated outward. Yeah.
Might Rams be interested in a used Derek Carr? Maybe. Can a brother hope?
Please, Sean, help us out.
But one thing that's always interests me is I wonder, how does the NFL picking apart Sean McVay's coaching tree every year, how does that affect him? Because he always seems like he's promoting guys and telling guys he wants them to go out and get jobs and all that stuff. But geez, I mean, every year it's like 2 or 3 coordinators going out the building where he can't even keep the same passing game coordinator, offensive coordinator, or even defensive guys for more than 2 years. How does that affect the Rams?
Yeah, I think one of his defining skills is less so like the offense that he has built, along with a lot of help from a lot of those people who have come into the building and then left the building. But how he can identify certain qualities in the coaches he wants to bring in. They have to be able to hold and develop an enormous amount of information in a very short amount of time for him. They have specific defined roles where, like, the quarterback's coach, for example, could be doing a lot of tendency breakdowns, could be doing red zone work, could be doing certain things versus specifically just working with the quarterbacks and uploading game plan to the quarterbacks. The offensive assistants, the pass game specialists, it's like, and it's competitive. I mean, you hear stories from that building about, like, you know, and I'm talking about staffs from years past where it's like, someone's office wasn't right next to his, and that was a whole thing. You know, it's like, it's competitive about like, because the pace at which he works, it's very demanding. And I think he's very good at identifying people who can match that pace and then shedding people who maybe are better suited for a different pace. You saw this with different staffs that he had that didn't necessarily work out, like 2022, for example, when they had a really bad season. So the other thing that they do that's interesting is, and I think it is probably maybe the biggest advantage that I've recognized in how an almost entirely new staff some years onboards and then gets right into it without seeming like they miss a step and in fact move forward. Even when this team is dealing with longer and longer seasons, like this has been a playoff team for the most part through his tenure. So you're playing deep into the postseason. You're missing the first hiring waves. Yep. And so then you're pulling from different resource pools than other people are because you are missing those first hiring waves, because all that's happening at like the Senior Bowl where the Rams are going deep into the postseason. So they're not necessarily in those places where you're making that you have the same like group of people to like interview and interact with. Yeah. What they have started doing, and they're like now I know renowned for this, where they don't go to the Senior Bowl just by principle. They don't go to the combine by principle, their nature of their draft and scouting strategies. And I spent the last year previous to this season, I spent with the scouting department for a series I did called Finding Rams, where I basically was like shadowing them through their entire draft and talent identification process leading up to this past draft. And one thing that I felt was maybe their biggest advantage on the coaching side is they don't send, because of the way that they've redefined some of their scouting processes, they don't actually send coaches on the road in the spring to pro days. They don't really send them. Like the special teams coach goes to a bunch because he's looking for backup linebackers and backup safeties and backup guys who are going to be on special teams. But for the most part, offense, defense, they're in the building through those early months of like right at the end of February into March. They don't go to the combine. They're in the building. And what they're doing, and I literally walked in the building one day and I saw this assistant carrying like 10 of those like giant binders. And it was all run game systems from every other team in the NFL. Wow. And it was like, that's what they're doing. They're studying things as a staff. They're pruning the current offense. They're changing different things. I sort of call it, they laugh when I use this word, but I sort of call it like their own little incubator where you see so many other teams will send their coaches, almost every other team will send their coaches on the road during that time. With the Rams, they're all in the building and they're all with each other as a staff and they're rebuilding an offense. So they feel they're already getting maybe a timeline step ahead in the process. By the time players get in, they're not starting their system from scratch again in OTAs and uploading it there. They already have, like I said, they're already starting at the letter J or K instead of in the spring with these players, instead of starting, all the way back. With some now they have to start further back because they've been rookies, but the coaches themselves are not starting further back. There's already a core system in place that brings these coaches up to speed quickly. And the ones who cannot come up to speed quickly, you often see those are the ones who like he hasn't retained over the last year. Now, there also have been a lot of people who have deserved and gotten those opportunities. So that to me, that period of time to me is their biggest advantage. And it meshes. You only get that if you have continuity with the front office. Les and Sean have been together since 2017. So that's part of the reason why they can do it this way, because Sean trusts at this point Les will just go and do all of that, autonomously.
Absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I want to follow up to kind of what you were talking about with the Saints and their decision that they have and head coach and all that. But let's take just our quick break, hit from our sponsors, Underdog Fantasy, and then we'll come back and just talk more team building. Like, we'll finalize talking about the game, but like the team building, the draft, front office, like that's what we love. And so we'll come back and talk about more of that after the break.
Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones are cold? Make your entries in just a few taps and turn your sport opinions into real money. Wide receiver hurt? Every dog deserves a second chance. And with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if any early injury causes your entry to lose.
I love Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is the best place to play champions. So sign up and deposit now using promo code Block Party to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Download the app today and use the code Block Party to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the app today and use the code Block Party to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Will Derek Carr throw for over 75 yards, higher or lower? You decide using Underdog Fantasy.
Download the app today and use code Block Party to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's code Block Party to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Higher or lower, you make the call on Underdog. Must be 18 years or older, 19 or older in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text Next Step to 53342. In New York, call 24/7-HOPE-LINE at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369.
Okay, we are back. I was glad Jordan figured out how to turn her
Yes,
camera.
all
I
right.
did
back
it.
on.
I know. I was just sitting there like, da-da-da-da-da. Then I was like, oh my God, they even told me to do this and I didn't do it. So.
You shouldn't.
Got it. We got there in the end, guys.
Getting to the game really quickly, something that is, if you're just a football sicko, the matchup to me that's going to be football porn is Fuaga versus Jared Verse, excuse me. You have two rookies who are having Jared Verse is having an unbelievable season. That's a whole nother conversation that Ryan and I have talked about with Jared Verse in terms of a prospect, because we'll get anyway. But what Fuaga was able to do against potential Defensive Player of the Year candidate Myles Garrett in that Browns game, we've seen what Jared Verse has done throughout the season. They're both rookies. Like, that is just like, that's what you want to see on Sunday if you're a football fan.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think that it's been fun to watch Jared grow up, basically, because he's on the verge of becoming like a superstar here, right? And that's like, I don't say that lightly.
No.
I'm sorry. I know that's like vinegar
No,
and like
it's not.
salt and like baking soda and everything is pouring in the wounds right now. And I get that. I know. But
it's just, for us, like, it's so funny because prior to the draft last year, both Ryan and I watched him and we saw his talent, but I think Ryan said it best. Like, we liked him as a prospect, but he looked so similar to previous Saints defensive ends that they drafted, like Marcus Davenport, like Peyton Turner, that we were just like,
No
and
thanks.
he's been like the exact opposite of that.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know what? That's okay. It's like we never know until a couple years from now anyway, right? So but it just, he has the presence. He reminds me like, and he and I have talked about this before, where he actually reminds me a lot of Jalen Ramsey when Jalen was here, because he cares so much about his teammates and about getting it right and about doing the right thing for his guys and about like he's so coachable. And that was a huge misconception, by the way, about Jalen that drove me nuts, that it just, and that he wasn't. And he really was. He liked to be pushed. He liked to be challenged. And Jared is the same way. And he'll also let you know exactly how he's going to beat you, and then he will beat you in that way. And that is where, like, they needed that personality, that presence on the field. And it's so striking sometimes that it's coming from, like, such a young person, right? And so I'm so excited for this because it's been fun watching him put pieces together step by step. There were times early in the season, and he would be the first to tell you, where he'd overplay his rush, or he'd really want to try to make a play versus thinking about the collective, right? And that's a thing that most young pass rushers struggle with at certain times during their career, whether they're rushing from the exterior or from the inside. Like Braden Fisk, his counterpart, also, their second round pick, had that same issue where they would want to go make a play so badly that they would overcommit, or they would bite on a play action, or they would do certain things. You saw this against the Eagles game because this was a primetime game where they needed to earn the right to rush the passer and they needed to stop the run. And instead, a couple of those young guys, they would overplay and then suddenly be out of their gap. And that's when Saquon Barkley would just destroy them, or they would overplay the rush. And, that's one thing, though, where I think it bodes very well for Jared, and it will be very fun to watch this matchup on Sunday, that he had a game like that against Jordan Mailata, where, yes, he had like that viral moment where like he picked him up and put him down, and I was like, oh my God. But at the same time, like, he had a lot of plays that he would want back, and he overplayed some things, and he... they allowed Jalen to escape contain sometimes, and those different types of things, gap accountability. And that's where this is going to be interesting, because, the Saints are going to try to make him bite the play action. You know that already. This is like
100%.
Kubiak City, right? Like, that's like exactly what they're going to do. Derek Carr, that's what they're going to try to do. And so Jared Verse not only playing technically sound and powerfully against such a high level prospect on the other side, but also like all of the little intricate details and little things that actually do lead to him making the play and the big play that you can't forget about as a part of the collective rush versus, just an individual. And I think it was good for him to have this game in front of the entire world where, yes, he had some great moments, but he also had some bad ones where you're going to learn from that, and teams will try to play you like that. And so let's see what you learn. So that's what I'm most looking for with Jared on Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's going to be so fascinating. I remember listening to you on NFL Daily, and you guys were talking about the Saints, and you talked about how the Saints kind of missed an opportunity a couple years ago, I guess, around when Sean Payton left or whatever, to, just do a reset, just do a full reset, rebuild. And, while the whole NFC South was kind of in shambles also, Atlanta and the Tampa Bay Bucks and all this stuff were going through their things, the Panthers, obviously. I just wonder, what were your thoughts, just as somebody on the outside looking in, just of the Saints, how the Saints operated these past couple of years, since Sean Payton left? What's been your kind of viewpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when talking about that, this summer and into the early fall, like for me, it was about the coaching, like the head coach, and then also the quarterback, because I think that we saw this. There were certainly and still are skill players that are phenomenal and like ascending in many ways too, or they've still got it, such as AK, right? Or like, on the other side of the ball, this defense showed that they wanted it so bad. And I just feel like so often winning in this league is about finding the team's pace, finding especially the pace of the premier player, what they need when they're ready to win, and building around them. Or when you have ascending players in certain areas and then players who are ready to go and ready to roll and ready to win games, how can you match the correct coaching and overall coaching staff, particularly the top spot, with maybe a couple of removals here or there, or then a different decision potentially at quarterback. Now, I'm not going to be the person, and I would be far from the person who'd be correct in saying like, oh, they should have done this instead, or these two decisions existed and they should have gone that way, because hindsight is always 20/20, right? But I just think, to me, this has felt like a team where, God, they're so talented in so many different like flashpoint areas, right? And then you can also see where, okay, this might be it. Maybe the second to last year or the last year, like they've still got one more ride in them on this or whatever. And those are tantalizing, and those are places that are great, sure, but it makes you feel like maybe you can preserve more time or get more out of the continuous group if you get positions like the quarterback completely correct, or if you get roles like the head coach completely correct. And I think that's where you want floor raising and median raising personnel in those spots. Status quo when you have certain elements of your roster that are aging, and then other elements that need to continue to develop and ascend to meet exactly the stars where they're at, or the established stars where they're at. Like, you have to have then people around them structurally who can bring that all together. Often those positions are the quarterback and the head coach. And I just didn't think they necessarily hit that point, as you can kind of see, because they already made a change in one of those spots.
Yeah.
And I know that that for you guys was a long time coming. But I won't rehash.
No, it's okay. That was the battle, I think, as Saints. And getting back to your point about like the head coach that you were making, what's going to be the most fascinating thing about the Saints going forward is what happens with Mickey Loomis as general manager, because we, for the first time this season, Gail Benson has been a pretty passive owner. She's let Mickey do his thing as GM, and kind of essentially took his word as bond of what he was telling her to be factual, which may be a plus or negative, depends on how you look at it in terms from an ownership perspective. Her stepping in, excuse me, and was collecting intel from the players and the personnel people on Dennis Allen prior to her stepping in and firing him. Mm-hmm. was very telling, because that was the first time since she's become owner that she used her power as the owner, kind of similar to like what Woody Johnson did with the Jets recently, of saying, no, this is not working. This is not what we're going to do, leading to Dennis Allen being fired. I've said on this podcast too, the same type of intel that she was gathering on Dennis Allen, she also at the time was gathering the same similar type of intel on Mickey Loomis as general manager. Now with the Saints, it becomes tricky and sticky because he's in the will, but wills can be changed, as Greg Rosenthal has said. So for us, we are wanting to see what is Gail's decision going to be with Mickey Loomis as GM for the Saints long-term for the future. Because it's going, speaking of pass rushers and what have you, like one of the things that sticks in our craw is that Mickey Loomis essentially picked almost every player in the 2023 draft, right? So I can tell this draft story. I've told it many times on this podcast before, but in the second round of 2023, Jeff Ireland, the scouts, everyone had Brian Branch. Well, technically it was Sam Laporta, Jonathan Mingo, Brian Branch, and then Isaiah Foskey, like stacked into the second round, right? Mingo goes to Carolina. Laporta goes to Detroit. And so Branch was the next BPA on their board. Mickey essentially outrules Jeff Ireland, outrules the board, and takes Isaiah Foskey over Brian Branch. And I don't think we've ever really seen Isaiah Foskey make any type of like plays in
anything,
a football game, right?
Done absolutely nothing.
It's like one of our biggest like things that drives us crazy. Right, and then Brian Branch is looking like potential, like a maybe defensive player of the year candidate in year 2 as like a slot like havoc player. So if he's the one who had this input, the question is who's going to be leading the team going forward. And I've already been told that Mickey Loomis already he wants, like, if he could, at least this was last month, he would hire like Aaron Glenn tomorrow. And it's like, bro, like, you haven't even done a coaching search. Like, can you interview people? So that's the thing, kind of going back to the thing you were talking about, is like, the Dennis Allen thing was such like a sham in terms of they knew who they were going with. They wanted to continue the continuity thing, and that's what the route that they went. However, this is the first time that you can truly, to the best of your ability, try to set up the franchise for success. So that means having a deep and thorough coaching search and interviewing multiple different candidates, Rizzi, Aaron Glenn, whoever else that you can interview, and have an idea of what is the vision and how can you build this team to be successful. But it just seems like there's this, Mickey wants to have this continuity thing, because Aaron Glenn was on the staff before he went to Detroit and was with DC. And this is nothing against Aaron Glenn, who's done a great job with the Lions defense, even after losing Aiden Hutchinson. And I'm not even opposed to him being the head coach if that's the correct hire, but at least have a coaching search first. That's just common sense. Like a real coaching search.
Yeah. I think, to your point as well, one of the biggest value adds from conducting an extensive search like that is so often, whether you're a general manager or a head coach who's hiring coordinators, for example, you're so siloed in your world because you are completely immersed in your year-round scouting, draft, and pro personnel identification process, which happens at different times of the year. And so you have to have different strategies for each of them. You're dealing with the money stuff. You are dealing with exits and entrances. You're dealing with, if you're the GM and you kind of have also some say in the executive and business side, you're dealing with that. You're in a silo where you're not necessarily always taking a step back and looking at the league at large. And and if you have a legitimate and thorough coaching search, and let me also say, it is so easy to go too far and talk to too many people, and then your head is spinning. But if you have like a thorough and really meticulous process, that is sometimes the best way to bring ideas into your building and to like open the windows and burn some sage and like get some breeze going through and like some airflow, right? And like and get some fresh takes, and then maybe this person who you interviewed, maybe he's not the right guy or woman, but also they have a candidate of a candidate that they brought up through the process that you're like, you know what, maybe that would be the right fit for a new personnel director, or maybe that would be the right fit for, you know, oh, this is compelling about this person. Maybe I should put them in place to help develop some analytical models, or these types of things that it's so hard. I don't care if you're the best head coach, GM, whoever in the world, if you're not constantly seeking outside ideas and searching in that way. And this is like the most natural built-in way to actually search. It is literally a search. Like, it's like the best way to search for those new ideas is to talk to those smart, qualified people who potentially could lead your franchise. And even if you are set on a decision, at least you have a pool before you even start the process. And we know some of these owners and some of these GMs have done that. They've been set and it's been sort of a sham, and you've been like, all right, I guess this surprising no one, this is the hire kind of a thing. But sometimes, you know, this is, and not to just bring it back to this, I guess because I'm on here talking about the Rams, you know, the Rams were talking to, oh man, guys, the Rams were talking to Josh McDaniels. They were talking to other, you know, Matt Patricia. This was the Patriots when they were hiring Sean McVay, when they were in that prior to 2017, during that process. Sean McVay was a later interview on their schedule, and they also were going to interview Kyle Shanahan. And the reason that they could not get to Kyle Shanahan, that they moved Sean up onto their schedule, was because they were in New England interviewing people who I think we can very definitively say should not have had that job, or either of the jobs that they had then. But they were interviewing them, right? And their plane got stuck in a snowstorm. Because their plane got stuck in a snowstorm, Kyle had to move his interview back and couldn't reschedule it because of his own schedule. And then they ended up moving Sean up. Well, when they sat down with Sean, he blew them away. And then they brought in Marshall Faulk to come talk to him. Blew Marshall Faulk away. That's a great bar to set, by the way. That's like a high bar. Marshall Faulk likes you, you're good. And so, but like this is how you have to be open to that. You have to be open to fluidity and the universal arc and chaos and sometimes interesting and crazy things that happen. You cannot be so rigid. Even if you have a person in mind, that's fine, as long as they're the right person, you know, as long as they are qualified and not like a friend of a friend of a friend, or you're doing a favor to, or like related to someone who is famous or whatever, like as we see in this league all the time. But like if you have the right person, if you believe you have the right person, still go and be thorough, still do the thing, still let yourself be carried by the flow of the universe toward these different possibilities and ideas, because that's the only way that you modernize a franchise and that you continue to evolve and to progress as like a monolithic entity.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
It's my soapbox.
No, I'm saying the one thing the person doing the hiring has to do is be able to put their ego to the side, because you might have to bring someone in that's going to upset the apple cart, that's going to make people uncomfortable in the building, where people are comfortable right now. People in the Saints building have been very comfortable for a long time now, since through the success of Sean Payton, and you know they just wanted to keep that going. And so now we're hoping that they just bring in somebody that can come in. I'm not just saying come in and fire everybody, but just a fresh look, like just a completely fresh look from the top to the bottom on what does this franchise have to do to become a contender, not just compete for the NFC South, an actual contender year to year. That should be the goal. Like that should be the ultimate goal of every team. And we don't feel like that's the goal right now with the current, you know, organizational structure. You know, it's more like let's keep our jobs. You know,
and 100%. And then kind of following up on your Ram story. The same thing but recently happened with the Vikings. They were so set on hiring Jim Harbaugh. Like they were just like so set, and then Jim Harbaugh goes in there, puts his feet on the couch, and like it's just drinking daiquiris, and like he has it all made, and they were just like, oh, like maybe now listen, Jim Harbaugh is a fantastic coach, and I think he would be a fantastic coach because he's a program builder no matter where he goes. But like he went in and he kind of bombed that interview because he just pretty much thought like he had it in the bag because he's Jim Harbaugh, right? And then they had to shift off that, and they had to bring in other people. They interview Kevin O'Connell. He blows them away, and Kevin O'Connell has been a young, fantastic head coach. Kind of a bit of a. Me and my girlfriend watched Receiver, a bit of a hat fisher, a little bit, just a little bit, bothers me a little bit. But do you, Kevin?
What is a hat fisher?
Like, I mean, he wears like a hat, but then like he takes his hat off, and it's like the situation isn't. I'm like he hat fishing, bro. Like he hat fishing. Anyway.
Now I understand. That took me way too long to. But I'm tracking. I actually am the same.
Just say it. Like go back and watch any Kevin O'Connell like whatever, and he's like usually always like wearing a hat, and Kevin like he's handsome, he got the jawline looking nice, and then like when he takes the hat off, it's like, hey buddy, hey sir,
you know what?
Hey.
That happened to me at the grocery store this morning. Oh my God. I always wear a hat. I'm a creature of habit. I have this one athletic hat that I always wear. On Tuesdays, I go into NFL Network to record with Greg, and they do the whole like spiel, like you have to be presentable. You're going on TV. Did you shower today? Kind of a thing. And so I'm not wearing a hat. And I went into the grocery store this morning. I ran into my neighbor, and she was like, the thing girls do.
Oh my!
I didn't recognize you.
You go, girl.
You're so brave. Just being out here in the wild with no hat. Like, who are you? So brave of you, Jourdan.
She did that like that gesture that sometimes we do to each other, like that. I didn't even recognize you. I'm like, well.
I'm not wearing my athletic hat.
Thanks.
Sorry. Apologize. But all that tangent to say is that because the Vikings were open-minded to something different, and Kevin O'Connell has been an amazing coach in this league, and it has had Vikings teams that have pretty overachieved. I think we can say have really overachieved and has built a really amazing program. With the Vikings. I'm going to ask you one more question about the game, and then we're going to get you out of here because we're going like an hour. We didn't mean to keep you this long.
Also, I just noticed that it has been. I had no idea. So that's just a testament to great conversation. So
we just talk ball. If I'm the Saints, I'm watching that Rams game they had against the Eagles, and I'm thinking, okay, we have AK.
Yeah,
we have a Taysom Hill. Maybe that should be the game. I mean, that should really be the Saints' game plan against any team they go against. But especially seeing what the Eagles did to the Rams, you would think that the plan would try to be to emulate. They don't have the same offensive line, but to emulate that plan in terms of trying to play bully ball against the Rams' defensive line and their defense with Taysom Hill and AK. And I think that should be the game plan. And whether they can replicate it like the Eagles did will yet to be seen. But I just wanted to get your perspective of your thoughts against the Saints run game against the Rams in their front, and also just maybe like a prediction, because I'm assuming you're going to New Orleans to watch the game, right?
Yes, I am. And I'm very excited. Like I mentioned, just like I love going there. Amazing city, welcoming, just so much going on. I love walking around and just listening to music and art and life and smelling food. And it's a beautiful, beautiful city. And it's also like awesome. You can just walk right up the street to the stadium and you watch people come out and celebrate. And you guys know in LA, it's just not the same. Everyone's in their car on the 405. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's just, it's a beautiful experience, especially when the weather turns like this and it's fall. You're walking down and everybody is just together and having a good time and like sharing food and sharing drinks. Yes, it is very cool. And I always joke with my friends and colleagues in the media, like we're up in the rafters in the Superdome in the press box, but it's an open air press box, so I would not have it any other way because you could hear every mood shift of the crowd, even though you're looking it through binoculars. like the entire time, and you're up under the vent, and so like you're just like, oh my god, you know,
that
like,
is Catherine. That has been
person right here. Yeah,
that has been Catherine Terrell's like shtick for years.
I know she brings a parka. She brings a parka. I love it for her. You have to give her some heck for that, because like she is so like she'll bring like,
it's not raining.
My colleague Sarah, she'll bring like a full on like winter coat for up there, but I respect it. It gets cold up there, but it's such a cool atmosphere. So the run game. So I think AK will give them issues with how tough he is to bring down. They have struggled, particularly if the back has gotten to the second or third level. They've really struggled to contain some arm tackling. And a lot of that is predicated by, like what we mentioned before, a D lineman up front is out of his gap. It takes what is a slower than usual secondary for this group to react to that and to kind of come and contain and mitigate the damage. And so that's been an issue. That's where I think Alvin Kamara in particular, if they can block enough to get him through and before, like Saquon had like a record-setting game with yards rushed before contact as well, which means his offensive line, as you guys know, was blocking their butts off for him. And so
must be nice.
he is like one of two MVP candidates in my mind anyway, but like at the same time, you know, he also, like, those guys up front are insanely good.
Insane.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit of a different strategy. So I think, you know, getting Kamara in space will probably be part of this, because they're seeing probably how their inside linebackers have struggled. Their defensive backs have struggled at times, and their front basically making sure the Rams will just obviously want to get them into longer second and third downs because they want to rush. Where they still have a ways to go in stopping the run in overall. They, in the middle part of the last 6 weeks or so, they did a pretty good job. But against like really powerful offensive lines, against particularly quarterbacks who can create, which will not be this, but maybe they'll play a little Taysom as well. But particularly against the threat of a quarterback who can create, they've really struggled to contain up front or in the flats or in the space that a quarterback can use to get the ball down the field to his receivers. So that's where they have struggled. Now, the Saints are not going to necessarily have the latter part of that, but they will be able to scheme Kamara into some different spots on the field that have given them trouble. And I think that's where you're going to really see them try to test the voids in this defense early. And the name of the Rams game is going to be just play gap sound, as they have been reiterating and just sometimes get away from because they're young. It's like first and second year dudes and they're young players. Try to set up at least second and medium and third and medium, and then rush the heck out of Derek Carr. And that's when you see them really come to life as a defense. So that's what I think their plan will be, kind of on both sides of the ball. But it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a fun little chess match, I think.
It will be. It will be. Ryan, anything for Jordan before we let her?
No, if I go, I have like 10 more questions. So.
I know, bro. I know.
Well, you guys know where to find me, so anytime, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I will definitely be doing the same.
One thing we roasted Greg at the beginning, but I feel like we have to roast you for we got to talk about the beans on toast thing. We got to talk about
beans on toast. Oh. I've gotten so many messages about that.
See, look at Ryan's face. Look at Ryan's face.
Oh my god.
Beans on toast. Come on.
But it's like this like thick tomato sauce with these beans, and then like a really thick slice of fried sourdough. So this is where it's like, it's not just I'm putting a dry ass piece of toast in a toaster and then dipping it into like an open can of ranch style beans. That is not what's happening here. Like this is you got to give me a little bit here. Like this is not.
Paint the picture for us, Jordan. Paint the picture for us, Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it is at least and I'm very particular about my sourdough bread. It is good for your gut. It is great. It's got live and active cultures in it. It can help you this time of year, especially heading into the holidays. And this is the same thing, Greg. Greg gave me the same face. You know what? It's fine. It's fine. And
we're not judging. We're just understanding.
That's all. You're just processing. That's fine.
Yeah,
I get it. Yeah.
That's it.
So, but it's got to be like a thick slice of sourdough bread, and you pan fry it in a cast iron skillet, with like just dripping in olive oil. And so then it's like really got this like crunch on the outside, but it's not soggy or anything, but the middle is still soft, right? And then you spread this like zesty, and you can make it spicy with different sauces, hot sauces, whatever. You can add chopped tomatoes, whatever. And it's like a sort of sweet and savory bean that they come from England in this blue can. But you can, I dress the sauce up a little bit, so it's like got more veggies in it and stuff. And that's my complete breakfast in a lot of mornings, especially when it gets cold, because I don't like sweet breakfast. I don't have a sweet tooth, and I have to have like something in my stomach that's like got a lot of food groups in it. And I don't want to just load up. I mean, I do want to load up on bacon, but I'd probably be dead by now if I ate as much bacon as I want to. And so then that's what I do. And then it's like, it kind of is, it gets all my complete foods, guys.
That's not what I was picturing. I just pictured
I know. I've gotten messages.
Like smushed beans on a toast. I'm like, what the hell?
I will say,
Colleen thought it was like refried beans on like a white bread
toast. That's what I was thinking.
No.
Like you doing okay, Jourdan?
That does sound sad. That does sound sad. If that were the case, I would need a wellness check, I think. Guys.
BetterHelp.com. Our YouTube chat was like 100% judging you, and then one of our listeners, my dude Jake said, if you were going to do all this work, why not just make French toast? But then she just said that she doesn't have a sweet tooth.
Listen, if people in the YouTube chat have a recipe for like a savory, like an actual savory, like I can't do sweet bread. I don't know what it is. I get because I drink like so much coffee that I have to have some sort of balance.
I'm the same way.
So you don't even eat like pancakes or anything?
No, I can't do it. Like I'll have sweet potato pancakes, but I can't put syrup on them. Like I don't know what it is. It's just I go totally haywire. And so if anyone has a savory French toast recipe they would like to pass along, I will accept. And then I will replace my sad, apparently pathetic beans on toast.
Whoa. No one said that.
Everyone's face said it. It's fine.
We should have you back just to have like just a food podcast, just talking about food. Greg also has some weird food tastes too. It'd be hilarious.
Did you guys hear the story? Hang on, we are not done with this.
Okay.
Did you guys hear the story of him burying, when he was a kid, burying beer?
The beer?
Like, okay, how come that's not the lead here? Like, let's talk about that.
Well, I understand. Okay, so what I took was in bougie Massachusetts with nothing to do. They basically, I love you, Greg. They basically took the beer because they were underage, and someone bought it, and then they took it to the forest, buried the beer in the forest because you couldn't take the beer home and have it in the fridge, buried it, and then everyone then convened at a later time to go to the forest and dug up the beer and drink it. I'm sorry. That sounds like a fucking horror movie.
I know.
That sounds like a plot of Blair Witch or some shit.
I know.
What?
There's something about the way that he said forest too. He didn't say the woods. There's something that made me think some dark creature was going to come out and lure them, beer can by beer can, Hansel and Gretel style.
Beer. We love you, Greg. We do. But yes, I 100%.
Down with that,
bro, you were from
pick up some beer,
You're from New Orleans. You don't have to hide beer in the bayou or anything.
Go to the forest, pick up some beer.
I like that, man.
It's a store. Insane to me. Well, I mean, it's not now, but I'm from Lubbock, Texas, and when I lived there, and for the longest time, it was a dry county. So there wasn't any alcohol sold in convenience stores, in grocery stores. So we had to go. Well, I didn't underage drink, but people had to go to a place outside of Lubbock, and it was called the Strip, to buy alcohol. And it was like that for years. So that sounds like it's just, I love Greg. We all love Greg.
I know. In all seriousness, Greg is one of the best people I've met. And it is so rare to have somebody of his caliber and brilliance just like be so open with his mind and his information, and like how he like brings people into football. Like I have so much, and I hope he's not listening, because then he's going to just like give me hell for complimenting him, and all this. But like, he's one of the best people I've ever met. And I am so grateful to like just be in his atmosphere, that like, cause I feel like I get smarter by being around him. So it's just awesome.
He's an amazing dude. When we're talking about food, the last time me and him hung out was a couple of months ago. We went to Girl and the Goat, and they were doing like a brunch thing, Stephanie Izart's restaurant, and we went and had a good time. Completely like Greg's a foodie. I'm a bit of a foodie, maybe more of a bit of a foodie, and so we had a good time. But I know Ryan, I know. But he's an amazing person, and if you know him, like you said, he's a dad, he's a husband, but yet he's still so welcoming. He doesn't carry that sense of just pretentious, masshole person. Like he's just so down to earth and so welcoming. Like when we went to the draft, this was the Chris Olave draft, when we were in Vegas, me and Ryan had our little Saints Twitter podcast draft party. Shout out to Kevin for showing up, like the only person.
Only Kevin.
And it was Greg and Mark, and before the draft, like we got together that day of the draft, I think it was, maybe on Friday, the morning after. And we just were in Vegas, and we were breaking bread and just having fun and just talking football, and just that's the person that he is. And Mark too, like that's who they are. So it's great to be friends and in associations with both of them.
Yeah, great souls. Football needs people like them.
No question.
Football needs people who, like I told you guys at the top of the show, who build community. So thank you guys for being those people. And it's just very cool to, I felt like time flew. Like I felt like we just sat down and started talking. I had so much fun. But this is all your shows. You guys do this. You make people feel like they're just sitting right there with you. And I think that is such a credit to how you do it. Like, it's just, like I said, it is come as you are. Let's talk ball. You like football, you're welcome. And I know, that's smart football people can often like push others out or like talk down or whatever. And nobody sitting here or nobody that we've just discussed ever does that or would do that. And I think that's awesome.
Ever. Thank you. We appreciate the compliments. It's crazy because we've been doing this for it'll be 5 years in March, April, which is absolutely wild. Like,
insane.
Wow. But we appreciate the words, and just thought of this. Forest Beer and Bean Toast sounds like a great either album or podcast. Like someone should jump all over that. Forest Beer and Bean Toast.
Or like the worst band name ever.
coming soon to a podcast or album near you.
There will be Jourdan. 2 listeners, me and Greg.
Colleen might like listen to like a little bit of
just
it.
out of like morbid curiosity. Yeah.
I'll listen to it.
15 minutes in, Colleen's out. But thank you so much, Jourdan, for coming on. I definitely want to get you back on maybe off season around the draft. Like that's when we light up, because that's our season. But thank you so much for making time and coming on. We really appreciate it. What an amazing episode, and you are always welcome back to SBP.
It is my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me, for the amazing conversation. I will be back as long as you'll have me, and I'll bring more terrible food takes, I'm sure. So.
Leave the bean toast, please. We good.
What deal?
She won't. She's saying that to appease us. She's making bean toast tomorrow morning. I will guarantee you. But anyway, thank you for coming on. We are wrapping up. We'll be back on Sunday night. So I didn't do any promoting, but we will have the live stream of the game on YouTube, and for our Patreons, we'll have the YouTube live stream as we're watching the game together on Sunday, and then we'll do our rapid recap pod on Sunday of the Saints and Rams game. Thank you so much, Jourdan. We are wrapping up. We will be back Sunday. And with that, we are out.
Peace.